eyes. So
Yeah,
the sun is just, we're just going to get a nice sunset now. So I hope the lighting is all right for you.
it is. So I'm just adding this now to Facebook and YouTube. I am learning some of these things, how all of this works. And in a few minutes, we're going to learn a little bit more about why learn how to paint. You know, why is it a lovely thing to do? It's just a really nice treat for people to have a chance to take a break from their regular day, relax a little bit, things like that. So, I've always wanted to know how to paint, but you know, my paintings don't say that that's inspiring.
Well, it could be that you're looking at it from the wrong angle. If you approached it like a 5-year-old and just played, you probably produce some nice work. But what probably happens is that you overthink it and you have expectations. And that's when the wheels drop off and you give up and you throw it in the bin. So it is, a lot of it is in here.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need the equipment and you've got to have a certain amount of inbuilt talent, I suppose. But there's a big psychological aspect to it. But it is very, very relaxing once you get into it.
Well, we are at the top of the hour now, and I think we will go ahead and get started. Thank you to all of you who are joining my first LinkedIn Live. It has been, I played around with this a couple times and never actually went live. So I'm testing this out with my wonderful friend, Nicola Blakemore, who lives in the south of France. We met virtually in a group of people who were teaching online. And then I had the pleasure of being in France a couple years later and met Nicola in person. And we have become each other's big fans and friends and all kinds of things like that. So my first question for you, Nicola, is walk me through your kind of career path and how you got started doing this. How did you decide to kind of, you know, let's talk about your career, and then we're going to talk about, obviously you're not French. How did you decide to move to France? But let's start out with, what did you do before you were teaching people how to do watercolor?
Oh, all sorts of things. I originally trained as a graphic artist back in the old days, back in the days when we used to have letter set and dark rooms and all sorts of things. So I started off as a graphic artist and worked for various companies. And then I started working for a newspaper selling advertising space, another very interesting area to be in. When I joined, they were actually still working with hot metal back in the day. So you'd have typesetters and it would be hot metal and all the rest of it. And I was still working there when we switched over to direct input and technology. I then changed direction. I ended up working in London for a national newspaper, doing various things. And then I went into travel. Then I went back into interior design, all sorts of things, really. Then I got to the stage where, sadly, my parents had both died. And I'd always thought that I'd like to live in France, having spent many happy holidays here. Which is not the same thing as living somewhere, I hasten to add. So I thought, oh, damn it, I'm just going to do it. So I did. I upped sticks, packed my cat, my suitcase, and moved to France. And the rest, as they say, is history. So really, the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing now is, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. I started teaching people because I needed to earn some money. Simple as that.
Simple as that. Well, you know what? Earning money isn't a bad thing.
Well, if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it,
Well,
wouldn't they?
fair enough. Isn't
Moving,
that the truth? Isn't
yeah,
that the
moving
truth?
to another country where I didn't know a soul. I had no connections whatsoever. So it was a big leap of faith. But sometimes Providence intervenes. I'd moved down here, and it was like the second day I had to go and do some shopping. And I saw somebody I thought I recognized. Nah, it can't be. And it was somebody I knew back in England. So he introduced me to a load of other people, and so it goes. And I think I think it's the German writer Goethe says once you really commit, then providence moves too, and all manner of things you never thought possible suddenly become possible. So there we are. I'm still clinging on to that.
I think that inspires us every day to do that. I mean, it's,
I
you
think
could
it
call it a
does, yeah.
thing, but in some cases, it's kind of a motivation. So how fluent were you in French when you made this move?
Oh, well, I'm not fluent now, I hasten to add, after 14 years, but there it is. I've been too busy trying to earn money, but I was fairly good. I could always get by. I could always do the basics, and gradually I've got, I've improved. So,
Most Brits learn French, don't they?
yes, it's usually when you're in secondary school, which is about when you're 11 or 12 or something. You then have the option of a second language, and it is usually French for us. And then the next couple of years, you have an option of another language, which used to be either Latin or German. So, yes, it is French for us. And they actually do very little English in schools over here, I've found out.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a side topic, but I struggle. I mean, I'm so when people say, how are you benefited or whatever else it is, and I said having English as a first language is a benefit.
Absolutely. And the
You know,
French have never forgiven us for it. That's
true,
probably why they
true.
don't learn it.
I mean, but it is the world's language, and I think it is something that is obviously handy to know. I mean, I don't know if you remember that situation a couple years ago with the young boys who got caught in a cave in Thailand, and these British men went in there to rescue these kids, and they said, "How many of you are there?" And the one boy who spoke English was able to give them the count, and
All
they
right.
talked about why that was something that there's a lot of reasons to not like Americans or Brits or whoever is English as our first language, but it's the language of aviation, it's the language of security. I mean,
Indeed.
it is the
Indeed.
language. So anyhow, so let's go back to your painting. Let's talk about, are people who are beginners, is this how overwhelmed are they when they sit down to take a class with you? And maybe we can talk about it, both in person and virtually, because you teach both ways.
Mhm. Um, well, it varies obviously depending how long they've been doing it, whether they're completely new to it. But sometimes they're pretty overwhelmed. They have expectations. And of course, we are taught from a very early age that pretty well everything's a competition, isn't it? So, that against that to start with, because as soon as you start to compare, then you lose your happiness, you lose your pleasure. So yeah, that is a problem. And some of them think they know it, but they don't. And then I get people who say, "Well, my mother was really good, and I'm not going to be as good as her, am I?" And so there's a lot of psychoanalysis I have to do before I even pick up a paintbrush. Some of them. So yeah, it can be overwhelming for them. I don't know what happens to people. It's like they think. I was talking to a group the other week about this. I say, look, this is just an exercise. You're just playing. Don't think of it as a picture, a painting, which is going to be framed and put on the wall. This isn't. It's just going to be stuffed away somewhere. You're learning, you're practicing, but people seem to sort of get into these headlights of, it's got to be absolutely super. And if you could just get rid of that, you could have a lot more fun.
Yeah, well, that's always true, whenever you got gosh, I mean, just think of all the different ways that we stifle our fun. But so online, let's talk about this because part of it seems like, well, shouldn't you be near me and see my painting? And how do you work with people who are learning online?
Well, it's nowhere as good as being with somebody, obviously. But the way I do my classes, it's as if they're looking over my shoulder. So I have the camera looking down at what I'm doing, and they see me loading the brush, mixing the paints, doing all sorts, and I'm making a commentary as I go along. So I'm saying, look, I'm doing this because, and if you do it this way first, then you'll have a much better outcome, and things like that. So it's a running commentary. And with all the online stuff, they can always ask questions, of course. They can always, well, I don't understand this. And then I go back and explain it in a different way.
In the States, we have, and I forget what it's called, but anyhow, it's a guy who does some really great online classes, and he, this, something
You,
institute,
uh-huh.
anyhow. But one of the things he said that his nieces and nephews asked, said, "You're really good at math. Could you do a YouTube video about how we should do our math?" And he didn't put it on security, or because it's just like it's teaching a kid how to do math. And then other parents started teaching it, seeing it, and they asked him if he would. It's called the Khan Academy, Khan. And so he said what he realizes his nieces and nephews, they almost liked him more virtually than in person, because they could stop him and go to the bathroom. They could stop him and go to have ice cream with their friends, and they could repeat him without feeling like they were annoying him because they didn't get it the first time because they weren't paying attention.
Yeah,
And
well,
it was,
of course, that's the other beauty. People can keep going through it until they've understood it and keep practicing. Yeah.
yeah. So, silly question. Do you sit down with your paints and start right away, or do you draw it and sketch it first with pencil?
It depends what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
The more planning you can do, the better. I always encourage if they're doing a picture, say, not just an exercise, they've been on holiday and they want to do a painting of their photograph. I always tell them, encourage them. They don't listen. To do little sketches. Decide, is it going to be landscape or is it going to be portrait? And what's their motivation for doing it? Because then you can pick out the bits that you want. There's no point putting in a boring lamppost if you don't want it. Use your artist license. You know, I dispense artist license all the time. It's a question of sort of deciding what it is, what's your motivation for doing this, and do as much planning as you can, choosing your colors, mixing your colors, sketching it out. And then when you've done all that, it's where you solve your problems, the planning. You solve them at that stage, then you can start to paint.
Oh, that's so fun, because you could think about all the things that are annoying you in that scene, and you can just leave them out.
Yeah, you can take those people out. No.
No wonder art is so beautiful.
Yeah, I don't want that in
I don't
there.
want
Take
that.
it
I don't
out.
want that. With cameras, it's harder. It's easier these days, I guess.
Well, I think this is where people sometimes get a bit tangled up as well. I say, look, you buy a postcard if you want a photograph. This is your interpretation of, you're on holiday, how it made you feel. Get that sunshine there, get that atmosphere, get that white snow, whatever it is.
Oh, fun. Think about it. Snow must be hard to paint.
Or you just leave the paper blank.
Oh, there you go. Make it simple.
There's a lot of benefit of leaving white space.
It's true. It's true. So how long have you been teaching online?
Oh, it must be about 10 years now.
Okay. And who is, if there is such a typical person who, checks in on your art in your courses? Is it,
It's
is it a,
I don't know, it varies, but I suppose you're going to say it's people who probably got the time, retired people. But no, it's a full spectrum. It's a full spectrum.
yeah, yeah. And so you've got this thing called Paintbox now. So let's talk about
Oh,
Paintbox.
paint box, yeah. I had this, teaching online and in person. I see the same people making the same mistakes time and again. It's the same problems they keep, that keep sort of tripping them up. So I put out a survey and I sent it to everybody, hello, ladies from Houston.
I know. Hello, ladies from Houston. Be
Hello,
sure to.
ladies from Houston. I could be coming over there. You never know.
Absolutely. Love
So
Houston.
I did a survey and I gave them multiple choice of what's the most difficult thing, And one of the top ones was they can't get contrast and drama into their work. That's because they're frightened of using too much color, too much intense color.
So
But
for a beginner, what is drama in art?
oh, it's getting something into your painting that when somebody walks past it, they do a double take.
Got it.
They go, "Oh, what's that? That's interesting." You know, otherwise some things end up looking just a bit samey, a bit, repetitive. But the thing that came out was on top was that they want to paint, but they don't know what to paint. So I decided that was where I was going to pin the tail on the donkey, as it were, and say, okay, that's my starting point. Every month I'm going to give you a subject, and it will be just a photograph. You've got to do the rest yourself. But I give them tips, instructions, colors, everything. And then they submit their work, and I give them feedback for the next session. And it's going quite well. It's going quite well. I've just been filming some reports on some people's work, and it's very variable, but it's good. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So with the paint box, it's 3 months, right?
Well, it's longer than that actually, because I'm doing a trial, but that group is closed
Okay.
because that was at a certain level. So, but people can still join now, and it's just every month. It's every
Got it.
month, yeah. But they can cancel whenever they want to. But yeah, it's every month, so they get quite a lot really for it's $35.
That's great. That's kind of magical because to think about, you could kind of begin to get a sense of your either skill, your lucky talent that you might have already, or that you can, you can learn. So can anybody learn to do watercolor, or is it something that you kind of have to be a bit, get gifted in that world?
You need to be tenacious, I think.
You need to be tenacious, yeah.
But people have fixed ideas about what they think a watercolor painting should be. I mean, if you take yourselves back to the genteel days of Jane Austen, it was what every young lady did, those who had money, of course. And it would be a pretty little picture and da 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 da. But now watercolors, it can be used in so many different ways. It can be used with intensity. It can be used with lots of water or not much water. It's a magical medium. If you just let the paint and the water play together, and see what happens, it's really fabulous.
So do you have some paintings that you never want to sell because you just like them so much?
Well, sort of, but that's not what you do. You have to let your babies go out into the world, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I always keep a record of everything and have fond memories. I remember the first serious watercolor I sold, and the lady who was the gallerist said, "It's quite a stiff price." I said, "I don't really want to sell it," and she said, "Well, we're in the business of selling paintings, Nicola." Oh, all right then. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And somebody did. They bought it for a good price. I'm not telling you what it was,
No,
but
no, no, that's good.
yeah.
One of my favorite ones of yours is that car that says "Ooh la la" on the license.
Oh, the car. Yes. Yes, that's quite fun. Mm.
It is fun. It is fun. Well, good. Well, we're going to make this, I think, a little bit briefer because we don't have a lot of questions, and I haven't seen any questions. And this is my first LinkedIn Live, so hopefully I have not missed any questions in the comment box, but I haven't seen anything. So what I will do is say thank you to the ladies from Houston, and thank you for Govinda and Gabor from Hungary, I'm guessing. And I will look forward to seeing people on my other future LinkedIn Lives. And thank you so much. And thank you, Nicola. Any other, how can people find you? It's painting with, what's your
Well,
website?
it's Painting with Nicola. If you type that in your browser, I've got a YouTube channel. I've got a painting school. I've got all sorts. So something will come up. But otherwise, contact Diane and I will.
Contact me, but, painting with Nicola and how many people do you have now on your YouTube channel? You're gonna make me crazy.
I've nearly got 30,000 on YouTube
That's
and
amazing.
40,000 students worldwide.
That's amazing. Well,
Thank you.
listen.
Well, thank you, Diane.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you, Govinda. And we've got somebody else. Watercolor painting in Chinese culture is purely black indications.
Yeah,
Black can have so many shades. That's actually really quite true.
that is very true. I did a test piece to show intensity of color. We call it color values. And it went from the palest gray to the deepest black. I got about 50 shades of gray, I think.
50 Shades. You know what, Nicola? You're going to get a chuckle out of this. There was somebody who was going to go to a Halloween party, and they went into the hardware store. And they have those chips of the paints, just
Yeah.
So I think there's 10 of them on there.
Yeah.
And so they did the 10 and then they put them, and they got 5 of them, and they put them across them, and they said 50 Shades of Gray.
Well, I did this chart when it came out, I thought just for a laugh, let's see if I can get it was a bit tenuous, but it was fine.
Oh, wow. Well, listen, everybody, have a wonderful Saturday. Thank you all for coming. It's nice to see the comments in there. We've loved having you there and look forward to seeing you again at my next LinkedIn Live.
Thank you very much, Diane. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Stay warm. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye now.